I'd also like to take a moment to thank our Board of Trustees, our members, and our community partners who help make programs like this possible. Your continued support allows MOCA to remain a place where art and conversations thrive. Leading tonight's conversation is curator Robin Clark, whose vision for this exhibition has brought Philip's work into focus in such meaningful and resonant ways. We are delighted to have her here to guide us through the ideas at the heart of this exhibition and at the artist's practice. Robin Clark is a program director, curator, and an educator focused on imbrications of contemporary art, architecture, and the environment from a global perspective. She has held curatorial positions at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles, the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, the St. Louis Art Museum, the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, and the Museum of Contemporary Art, San Diego. She led the Artist Initiative Collection Research Program at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, where she also launched the museum's first higher education program, Teaching from Collections. Until recently a scholar in residence at the University of California, Berkeley, she currently manages the Parker Foundation Art Collection Loan Program in San Francisco and is a contributor to the Joseph Albers catalog of paintings forthcoming from Yale University Press. Please join me in welcoming Robin Clark and Philip Smith.
Thank you, Lauren. It's such a treat to be back here because I was invited to work with Philip on this project, and we worked intensively for a year, not even 9 months, installed the show, and then I promptly went back to California and never saw it again. So it's very exciting to be back and just be amidst the paintings and amidst the incredible staff here at MOCA North Miami. I'm really grateful that I got to know you through this project, and really grateful to Chana for inviting me in, to Amy Galpin, who introduced us, to all the staff who helped realize the project and host the project, through its lifetime here. I'm thinking, Philip, if you wouldn't mind reflecting on your career as you did as we pulled together the ideas for the show, and also maybe speak a little bit about what it's been like to live with the exhibition since you've been here.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I know it's not great weather, but I really appreciate you coming. And very quickly, thank you to Shauna, who had this idea germinating for a while. And it was like, we should do a show. Okay, we should do a show. Okay. And then it was okay, we're doing the show. And thank you to the staff who made this possible. And Robin was just a miracle worker. I mean, she came in, and you're asking me how the show developed. Many times during the point where I was going through the archives in the studio, I wanted to call Shauna and say, listen, I want to be courteous, and if there's enough time to back out, find someone else, because we just don't have a show here. And the problem is, I just make this stuff, so I don't really look at it. I kind of work, and it goes in the racks, and then I work again, and it's a cumulative process. Each time I have to do better. I can't do the same. So it's this never-ending competition with myself. It just doesn't end. But Robin came in, and it was just chaos, because I had spent 2 years documenting and archiving all the work, photographing it, measuring it. There were over 700 paintings in the studio, and I couldn't make sense. She came in, and I think it was that weekend. She said, okay, this is it, boom, 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 and she just, it was crystal clear. I said, I like that, that's good. And that's the show you see. She just zeroed in, and it all made perfect sense, because I was very hesitant to have a chronological show, because I find them really boring. It's like, here I am at 6 years old doing this, and then it's like I'm 20 and I'm looking at cubism, and it just is like, who cares? And she made this show experiential. Each room is different. It's a very different vibe when you walk into each room. And yet it's loosely chronological, not strictly, but close enough. I'm not going to fight anybody over the years where the paintings are. It's close enough. And reflecting on the show, I've been here maybe 3-4 times since the show is up, but it's been, I don't know the words, but it's been very comfortable to know that this exists in the world, that the work is here, kind of vibrating, talking to people, saying, look at me, and sharing what it is with people that I don't know. That gave me tremendous peace. And I just didn't come every day. Like I said, I came 3-4 times, but knowing this was here, I just felt that my spirit had expanded, that my personality had kind of become more shaped. That makes no sense, but that's the best I can do.
I like it. So you mentioned that we ended up organizing the rooms thematically, and the works are generally within each room pretty close in time, but the rooms are not strictly chronological. You have lived with a lot of these works in your studio, but you haven't seen them all together before. I mean, this is your first survey show, sort of soup to nuts in your career, and has it affected your thinking or your sensibility about your work to see it? I'm not talking so much about the way we organized it, but even just to see work from all the different moments up at the same time.
I think that it illustrated for me that my initial goals when I was starting out in 1977 were consistent, and it took getting older and having more experiences to keep honing those ideas until they came to this. And I've said this a lot, but I was in the martial arts for 25 years. I had a very, very strict Japanese teacher, very rigorous guy. And one of the concepts he taught me was something called Renma. And in the martial arts, and I think in Japanese Zen, there's this idea that we're kind of like a lump of coal, or either our lives are like a lump of coal, or our personality, or spiritually, or our technique. And through polishing, called Renma, it becomes hopefully a diamond, and you become this pristine, glistening diamond. And that's, for 50 years, that concept has guided me. And I think that the progression of this work is really about that kind of process of Renma, of polishing and polishing and polishing. And okay, well, I want to talk about this, but I already did that. Maybe I can come from this direction. Maybe I can come from this direction. But the core of what I'm talking about has always been the same. Should I talk about my dad a little bit? Or?
If you wish.
So part of what all this is when I was young, growing up in Miami, my father had a very different kind of glamorous career. But one day he suddenly discovered, I was 14 years old, and he discovered he could talk to dead people and heal sick people. And he like threw away his entire life to pursue this. And suddenly our house became like Lourdes, with people lining up in the middle of the night to be healed from chronic diseases or leukemia or whatever. And he never charged, and he started to devote his life to spiritualism and helping people. And that was the last couple decades of his life. So that obviously impressed me. Part of me rebelled, but also I was taught a lot of his ideas. And fast forward, when in the 80s I was in Nepal, and I was visiting the monks, and they were making these paintings of Buddha called tankas, which basically they look like gift shop paintings of Buddha, you know, sitting there and all the bodhisattvas around. But the monks imbue them with a very powerful spiritual energy, so that if you have these paintings in your home, they give you a healing, or they bring you good luck, or they help repair your life in a certain way. And I thought, between my Zen training in the dojo and my father, maybe I could make paintings that are active and alive and can live with people. And I thought, well, why not? Because they're on cotton, which comes from the earth. The oil pastels are ground up minerals, or the paint is ground up minerals mixed with linseed oil. And so, not that I would work hard at it, but over those many years, the idea was to make these active, energetic, live paintings that brought comfort to people. And what is somewhat interesting about my, I guess call it an art market, is that my paintings don't come up for auction. When parents leave them to their kids or leave them in their wills, and just in the last year, someone came to me with a painting she inherited from her mother, a big painting, and they took very bad care of it, and so I was restoring it. And she said, we've changed our wills now because of this painting, and we've told our daughter she can never, ever sell this painting. She has to keep it, and if she doesn't want to keep it, it has to go to a museum. And I started hearing that more and more and more, and the only way I can credit this crazy thing that people don't want to sell them, they want to keep them, is that the paintings are alive, and that they're merging into their lives and their family. And what a great thing to do as an artist, is to become part of someone else's life.
Back to me.
Yes.
So it's kind of a sideways rejoinder, but
We're going very sideways.
we can go very sideways. My question for you now has to do with process, and I think, though, that it also links to your idea that there's a thread through not your idea, your knowledge that there's a thread through all of the work. And I wonder if you could speak to your archive of images and how you've collected it, and how you use it, and how it informs your different bodies of work, which in some senses can look very different. Like the white paintings look very different to the black paintings, look very different to the energy paintings. But there is this DNA that's in all of them.
The slides, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I moved to New York to be an artist, at the time, the only thing the galleries were showing were minimalism, like copper plates on the floor, or Richard Serra was throwing lead against the wall. It was not a visual art, it was very cerebral. And yeah, I'm a cerebral person, but I like to look at things. I'd rather look than think. So there were no, pop had already stopped. The pop artists were sort of being relegated over here. And I like images. I grew up looking at Egyptian hieroglyphs in art books, and my parents in the 50s were members of the Museum of Modern Art, and we would get these catalogs about abstract painting. And both of these were languages to me that I wanted to learn. I wanted to be able to speak. I wanted to decode these languages, which is why I think the paintings are very coded and rich in imagery. So what people were starting to do, people my age, they were starting to use photography as a basis for their work. That was something that really wasn't done. And in 1977, I was in this exhibition, which is the first room, called Pictures, which we were just 5 young artists. We were doing what we were doing. We were sort of making up our own language. We didn't realize that the pictures would become the pictures generation, and it would be taught in colleges. It turned into a big deal, but I never knew it. It's just some one show that I was in. But what I started to do was I had a used beat up 35 millimeter camera, and I would go around the city. I had no money, and I would go into like a bookstore, and I'd look around, and I'd open the book, I'd take some pictures as references, or I'd go to the library, take pictures, or I'd go into record stores when there were records, and I would take pictures of albums. And I would come home and I would develop the film myself, and I would use these as reference material to draw from. And then I started projecting them, and I realized by projecting them, they became a kind of like a storyboard, like a pictorial, like a storyboard for a movie. And I would lay these slides out, and you can see them in the front room. There's a very small little light table with some of the slides, and I would lay them out, and they would talk to me and tell me a story, and I would pick them up, and I'd either project them or draw them, and that's how these kind of loose narratives started happening in the paintings. It was also a time when still narratives, imagery were controlled. So, for example, if you wanted to watch The Wizard of Oz, you had to wait a whole year until Easter, till it came on TV, and you had to make sure that it was 7 o'clock and you had to be there. Now, imagery is very fluid and malleable. You can actually own The Wizard of Oz, and you can watch it 24 hours a day if you want. You can watch it in November. You can watch it in July. You couldn't do that before. And what happened, and I think it's happened throughout the world, and we're still feeling the kind of the shaking, the vibration of this, is things became detached from their official meaning. So when you'd see an ad of a woman washing dishes with a certain soap powder, you'd think initially that it was an ad for, I don't know, Joy soap detergent. Over time it says, oh, this is about the oppression of women, or this is about the subjugation of women, or women not being allowed to become lawyers or doctors. They took on different meaning, and images became really rich with meaning. And so these images I was taking were about the idea of shaking loose standard meaning and creating new meaning for them. More?
Yes. Just a little bit more.
Okay. So since 1977 till 2025, I've done the same process, and but surface-wise they look different, and also I've been different, and these have been sort of clocked to my own progression as a human and seeing different things and growing older, hopefully a little bit wiser, and they became different. And one of the things that you'll see throughout all of the work is I was fascinated by drawing, mark making, because this is really primal human communication more than anything. You see kids make a drawing, or if you have to go to someone's house before Google Maps, they would draw you a map. It was all, line making to me was primal, basic human communication. So I wanted to learn or figure out how to make paintings that were drawings, and I wanted to make drawings that were paintings. And that took a lot of research, but that's basically all the work that you see.
So speaking of the works in this room, well, it's reminding me, first of all, I figured out that this week or next week is the anniversary of my studio visit to you. So this
Really?
whole journey is just
Wow.
this 1 year. But speaking of that, in the process of developing this project, we looked at, as you said, hundreds of paintings and identified groups, and then within the groups tried to find the works that seemed the most communicative with one another, and then figured out how we could build spaces within the given parameters of the museum that would fit the works. And as you said, the show starts in the 70s, and we were a little loose about the chronology, but it sort of goes 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And then we decided to dedicate this largest room to new work. And a few of these paintings existed already.
Yes.
Do you remember which ones?
The blue one, the two blues, and the black and white. The rest were.
And so then you said, okay, and I'll make the rest. And I said, wait a minute, we're opening in 5 months. Do you really want to paint a whole, put on yourself the expectation of making a whole new body of work? And you did. I just want to say that I was astonished that he painted all of this in a really short period of time.
Me too. Well, the other thing that happened with this room was, I think originally the room was smaller, the first room. And then we saw the plan, the room's bigger, and I thought, I have to get to work. One thing about this room is I had envisioned this room as the chapel for the exhibition. This was I don't like the word spiritual space or sacred space, but this was the special place. And this was sort of the altar that you came up to, and these were the stained glass windows in the chapel, and very non-denominational, but I feel that it worked. I mean, I feel everybody sort of gravitates to this room. It has a very calming. I wish this were my living room. I mean, I love being in this room, and I'm gonna really. I was thinking if I could recreate this in my house some way, but I don't think I can. It's a. Wait, what was the question?
It was more a reflection on how you came up with this so quickly, and it's so.
Where that comes from is one night I was in the dojo. I went there, as I said, 25 years, 7 days a week. And I took a class which was after work for everybody. And everybody was very lethargic, and no one was it was just sloppy. And the teacher stopped the class and he said, wait a minute. He said, if you're walking home one night from work and a guy comes up and puts a gun in your head, you can't say to him, hey man, I had a hard day at the office. Would you come back and mug me tomorrow? Because I'm just not up for it tonight. And he said, you need to be on. And there's the training that I went through for those 25 years. I'm a little out of it because I haven't done it in a long time, but when necessary, it really kicks in, and it's I can't even describe what it is. It's very powerful, it's very directed, and you just go. My black belt exam, and that was just the first level. If you went up, mine went on for 12 hours, no bathroom breaks, no, you just did your katas and you fought for 12 hours. Sometimes you were blindfolded. But as you go up in levels, sometimes there's 72 hours nonstop, no sleep. So it's a very, very rigorous training. And I guess it's like doctors who work in emergency rooms. It just never leaves you. And I try to be normal as much as possible. But when they enlarge the room here, you got to show up and get it done.
So this is a little bit of a pivot, but I thought it'd be interesting for people to learn about your growing up in Miami and the way Miami kind of obviously informed your ideas about the world as a youth. And then you moved to New York and spent a lot of your time, most of your adulthood in New York, and then you chose to come back here and spend most of your time here now. I'm interested in Miami then and now for you, and also New York then and now for you, because even though you spend most of your time here, you still regularly go back to to New York.
Yep.
And how do you think about past and present Miami and past and present New York and past and present Philip?
You ask really easy questions. I loved growing up in Miami. It was in the 50s. It was a very, very special place. You know, if you watched the news, the black and white news on TV, and then the weather report came on, he would say, well, in Los Angeles, you know, it's raining. In New York, there's snow. But there'd be the map of Florida, and there was no little dot for Miami. Miami was so inconsequential that they didn't even report the weather back then. It was like, who cares about Miami? And I loved it. It was a very quirky, strange, it was nuts to grow up here. It was the place where people came to reinvent themselves or to escape from something. It was not a normal place. I mean, the mafia was very deep here at the time, the Italian mafia. Now there's different mafias. And there was this really cheesy idea of glamour, like on Miami Beach. You know, Frank Sinatra, my mom would go see Dean Martin at the hotels. I mean, it was very accessible. And there was no one here. I mean, it was great traffic. There was no traffic. We would, during the summer, basically, Miami Beach shut down. There were no tourists, there was nothing. So we would go stay in the hotels during the summer because it was so cheap. And we got 3 meals a day. Got in the pool, and I don't know, it's like $15 a day or something for everything. So Miami was very, very different. I always wanted it to be an international city and to be sophisticated because I thought it had so much to offer. And it's that now. And I'm sort of sorry it's that now because it's too much traffic, it's too much building, it's too much, it's gotten expensive, and it lost sort of the charm. But the natural world of Miami, to wake up and see palm trees, or to see, I have wild peacocks in my neighborhood walking around, to see that is just, I don't know, it's a dream. And so it was very influential in a way in my work because Miami was sort of make it up as you went along. There were not the rules that someone growing up in New York City, you behave a certain way, you stand on the right side of the escalator. There was none of that in Miami. It was really free for all. So that gave me a bit of a free spirit. New York in the 70s when I was there was probably the best time to be in New York. The city was bankrupt. No one had any money. There were drug addicts everywhere. But the artists also had no money, and there was no art market, but they were incredibly creative. I mean, that's where Warhol would do things as cheaply as possible because he'd make these films, just set up the camera and walk away, or the silk screens, because it was a very economical way to make art. And people were accessible. Now there's all this hierarchy of the art world, but back then it was, you could walk in and talk to Leo Castelli in the gallery. You could go up to the factory and say hi to Andy. So it's different now. I don't really know New York that much anymore. It's gotten sort of so complicated. But I go and I look at the galleries, I go to the museums and restaurants and see my friends. I think that my German dealer told me years ago, because I was talking about moving to Miami, and he said, well, it'll change your work. I said, no, the work is inside of me. It's not going to change my work. But I think it took a while, but I think it was right. I think these paintings came out of being in Miami because I'm not sure where they came from. They're radically different than all the other paintings in the show, even though they're made the same way with the same slides, the same images, the same DNA images that I've used for 30, 40 years. But there was something about, I guess, being home, which is a very powerful emotion. And it just gave me a comfort and freedom to do these. So I'm kind of curious what's next, because there's always next.
Well, that was going to be my next question, actually.
Okay. Next. Next is I got to do better, and I'm not sure. I want to go deeper. I'm not sure how to make the paintings even more magnetic, more powerful. I think about it every day. I wrestle with it every day. But Richard Serra, the sculptor, said, work begets work. So rather than sit around and wait for inspiration, I'm just going to keep working, and it'll present itself as to what the next step is. And that's true of all of us in life. I mean, when we're ready for the next step, it does appear. We don't think it does, but it does.
I'm wondering, could you think about the work in the show? This is kind of backtracking.
It's okay.
If you think about the work that's in the show, is there anything that really surprised you because either you hadn't seen it in 20 years or because you'd never seen it framed, or even just it looked different on the wall with other things next to it, that even though you're quite familiar with it, it just becomes something else in a new context?
All of the above. The drawings in the picture show, I think I hadn't seen them really until you were there. They'd been rolled up for 50 years, and I hadn't. That's older than most people in this room. And I was surprised how they held together. And the ideas were very apparent to me. And I think they look like they could have been done today. And that was very comforting to me. And seeing the work up, it's amazing. You know, if you go to Sotheby's, to the auction house, and everything's for sale, and in a way, all those paintings are kind of orphan children. They're sort of being thrown away. They're being sold. And the paintings all have a kind of pall over them. To me, when I go, there's a kind of sadness. It's like when you abandon a dog and you see it in their face. And I think that, I know that when I finish a work, I always think it's okay. But when I see it in someone's house or in this museum or in a gallery, it sort of comes to life. And I do think paintings need a viewer to become alive. I mean, it's great that I look at them and it's great that I make them, but I think that they are sensitive to everybody's energy that's looking at them, and they respond and they sort of stand up at attention and, oh, you're looking at me? Well, I better show you my best face. They somehow tighten up when they're in a gallery or they're on someone else's wall. You can see that same painting at an auction house, and then you see it hung in someone's house, and it's like, oh my God, that's gorgeous. And you just didn't see it before. And it's not that my eyes are faulty. I have pretty good eyes. I think the energy of the painting changes.
I think so too. And I was so astonished and thrilled to see how much more they came alive on the walls of the museum, even although the studio is also beautiful and they were not unhappy in the studio, but there was just something about the occasion. And I guess maybe I think a little bit about the arrangement of the paintings and the way that how they are juxtaposed changes their meaning is similar to the way that the elements within the paintings change their meaning depending on how they're juxtaposed.
Yes, and I think that's the magic of good art. You know, when I go back to the Museum of Modern Art and I look at Matisse, I think it's the music lesson. There are times that, oh, I didn't see that, and I've been looking at that painting since I'm, 15 years old. Or how did you do that? Or I think that good art reveals itself, takes time, and we're living in this sort of fast food culture, and so much of the art that's produced is sort of a one-liner, a one take, and there's no real depth to it. And I like coming back to art over and over and over and over again, and letting it talk to me, because I'm different. We're all different. I didn't realize and looking at this show, I see how far I've traveled as a human. I'm the same, but I'm totally not the same. And that's the best reward from this exhibition, was to kind of landmark my progression as a human through time. That's a big gift, so thank you. And thank you.
Well, Philip, do you have questions for us?
No, I'm just very happy people came and saw the work. I'm very grateful for that. Does anybody here have questions?
Absolutely have time, and I have a mic if you need it.
Oh, okay. This is like those talk shows where they go into the audience. And
Hello. Okay.
Yep, good.
First of all, I never thought I'd come so close to crying at an art talk, but that was really beautiful, and the questions were really good. So thank you for this.
Good.
I was just wondered, when do you know with each era of your work, when do you know when it's kind of over and you're trying something new? Is it boredom, or is it just you reach a point of you can't work on it anymore? You mentioned a little bit here that you don't want to go deeper, but how do you know for all these different stages, because there are quite different stages, when you're stopping?
Yeah. Well, you basically answered the question. I end up like, I just can't do this anymore. It's like all of a sudden, the person you've been married to for 30 years, it's like, I can't wake up next to you anymore. And it's that feeling that it's like, get me out of this room, and I hate you. It's really, but I don't always have the next replacement. And then I'm stuck in the desert, and I have to really struggle. I'm working now, but I'm in a quasi-desert, because I know I want to go somewhere else. I just don't know where. And at least for me, the difficulty of being an artist is there's no roadmap. Like, if you become a doctor, you know you're going to be an intern, you're going to be a resident, you're going to go to this hospital, then you're going to be the head of a department, then you're going to have a research lab.
Yeah.
It's kind of mapped out.
Mapped out, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any map, and so it's been a process of discovery, really. And later, I've learned finally from my father, which I didn't learn when he was alive, to just really trust that I'll be guided, and you begin to listen, and you begin to hear when they're talking to you and telling you what to do, and that's helpful. But they got to talk a little louder now, because I really need to know what the next thing is.
Yes. I understand.
It's like they got to get to work.
Yes, it's just it's rare that you see such a bookend around the works, and this is like very clearly. Maybe you saw it when you walked into 700 pieces, Robin, but it really feels like a start of a chapter and an end of a chapter. So we look forward to your next chapter.
Thank you. She didn't have an easy job, but
No.
she got it so quickly.
That's great. Thank you. It shows.
Yep. Okay.
Any questions? I actually did have a question for you,
Yes.
Robin. Been dying and burning to ask. Where did you start in terms of looking at this collection of 700 works? What was that first moment of, okay, here's the click, and then it goes from there?
Well, I started with what was up on the walls. He had a kind of selection of works up in the studio. The white paintings, which you remember from a gallery that's early in the show, they're now framed, but at the time they were unstretched canvases, and he had just stapled them up on the wall, a bunch of them. And they look so fantastic together in that arrangement that we decided to show them in the salon style that they are. That was the first thing that clicked for me, was that these white paintings look stunning together as an ensemble, and let's keep that, even though it was probably just expedient at the time, because otherwise they were in a stack on the floor. And then I think some of these types of works were in the room, and I fell head over heels for them. And so then when Philip said, well, I'll paint a whole gallery of them overnight. No, not overnight, but I mean, in a short period of time. But they look so fantastic that was also a great idea. And then I think from there, we did kind of start toward the beginning and say, let's look at the earliest work. And we looked at the pieces that are in the first gallery from the 70s, which are actually pastels on paper. And they were also stunning, and I fell so in love with them, and I think we were a little unsure if we could show them because they'd never been framed before. When Philip showed them in the 70s, he just tacked them up on the wall, which was not uncommon then. But they hadn't been unrolled in 50 years, and they are fragile, and the surfaces are completely vulnerable, and we said, we can't just tack them on the wall. So how can we treat them, and what would look good, and can we afford it, and all those questions. And I'm so grateful that the museum found a way to do that, because that was such an extraordinary start. So it was like that. And then, to be honest, the room that came together very last was the one behind this wall, because in one layout of the show, that was more of a hallway than it is now. I mean, it's still like an egress point, but it's become its own room. But before, it was really just sort of like a way to get someplace else. And there wasn't anything in there, or there were like one or two things in there, and then slowly it came together to have its own presence.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Great.
I have an easy question for you. When you work on your art, do you listen to music?
Yes. I sort of have to. It turns off the noise in my head, and I can really focus. And I'm sad to say I'm not very adventurous. I listen to the same 2 or 3 artists that I have my whole life, but they give me a real comfort. And when they're on, it's just like all of a sudden there's this sort of bubble that forms around me, and everything leaves, and I'm just in that space. It's through my dojo training, the idea was when you walked into the dojo, you immediately had to start training. If one guy said to me, I don't care if an atom bomb just dropped outside, I don't care if your house blew up, as soon as you set foot in here, you're here to train. I'm not really good with that, because previous I had to read the paper, I had to have coffee, I had to have more coffee, I had to get on the phone, it took me a while to get into that zone. I'm much better now, although I'm getting a little loose with it, but the music is really helpful. Why'd you ask that question?
Looking at your work, I was guessing that there was music involved during your process. It was just a wild guess. Thanks for answering.
I try to do 2 things at once, where I've been listening to interviews or something, but I don't really listen to the interview then, and so that the interview goes for 30 minutes and I don't know what they said. So it's much better with music, and also that's why I think I listen to the same music over and over, because I know I don't have to actually listen. My spouse is a composer, and the music that is written is so cerebral that you have to listen. You can't like listen to the music while you're cooking dinner. You have to sit and listen. It's really intense. I don't want that music in my studio. I just want like wallpaper. I'm always embarrassed because it sounds so cheesy, but the 2 people I listen to are Laura Nyro and Van Morrison. I don't know why, but they hit my heartstrings in a way. Laura's voice is, it's angelic. I don't know how this woman would get on pop radio, because the music is really it's sort of show tunes in a way, but it's also modernist and abstract, and she's going all over the place with her voice and the piano, but her voice takes me to the clouds. And Van Morrison's voice is very guttural and very primal. So I go to the clouds, and then I become an animal again, I guess.
There is a playlist.
Yes, I try to gussy it up a little bit so that it was like a little more intelligent than those two. So I sprinkled in Satie and a couple other things to make it look like I was intelligent, but that was fabricated.
Where does that live on the museum's website? It's on the museum's website.
It's a good playlist, but it's not what's in the studio. I thought really hard when Michelle asked me for that. I thought, okay, I got to really be smart here. And it was like, I put those two in, but it's like I need to really kind of, the person I listen to sometimes is also a guy named Steve Reich. He's a minimalist. I used to see him perform in New York, and it's a very meditative music, but I can't listen to it all the time. But he has this couple songs with marimbas, and it is haunting, and it's energetic and beautiful. I would go to Pandora, and you can listen to Steve Reich and find the marimba music. It's like 13 marimbas or something. It's very ethereal music that waves in and out, and you don't realize that you're changing dimensions as you travel with this music, and it's really brilliant, and it's very, very interesting music. And that was my one intellectual contribution to the playlist.
Well, thank you for that. There is a playlist to download. There is still time to spend more time with the work. We have until October 5th with the exhibition. So I just want to say, before I wrap up, can we please give another round of applause to both Philip and Robin? Thank you both for the incredible show, the incredible conversation, and I imagine some of the storytelling that's coming up for our own selves as we explore your work. So thank you again all for being here. We look forward to seeing you at more MOCA programming. And again, thank you both for being here. Have a good evening.